Ever wished you had a personal assistant that knew everything about you, like your projects, experience, links to your GitHub, LinkedIn, website, your email, or even your grades? Well, today I'm going to show you how to create exactly that, a chatbot that can answer questions on your behalf anytime, anywhere. Sounds cool, right? And the best part? I'm going to walk you through the entire process from start to finish. We will build the front end of the chatbot using React.js and Tailwind CSS, and on the back end, we'll set up a server with Flask and Python. But that's not all. Our chatbot's brain will use GPT-4o and Langchain to handle all the intelligent responses, and we will store everything in the Pinecone as our vector database. So stick around, because by the end of the video, you will have your own personal assistant embedded into your website. So as you can see in the video, I'm asking some specific questions. I'm asking what is his experience with Kafka. So let's see what it says. As you can see, it has given me a really specific answer of where and what I did using Kafka. This is incredible. So let's dive in straight into the code. So let's start by creating a form component. Inside that, I'm going to give it a class name of width full. I'm using Tailwind CSS. So make sure you have Tailwind installed on your computer. And for the text input, I'm going to be using text field from Material UI. So make sure you have Material UI installed as well. Let's give it something like ask anything about me, powered by OpenAI API, something like that. For O, let's give it a variant of filled, full width, since we want to cover the whole width of the screen. Let's give it a value. For the value, I'm going to be using the state, and an on change function as well. We can do that later. Let's give it an error, and that's going to be another state. A helper text. A placeholder. Let's give it something like type your question here. For this, for the state, I'm gonna create a new state called question, set question equal to use state. And the question will be going inside the value. And on change, I'm gonna set the question. Set question equal to set question target dot value. Let's create another state, const error set error equals use state. That's going to be string, not a boolean. And that's going to go inside error, and make sure you have 2 exclamation marks before error. Helper text will also be the error. Oh, it's there. It's just that the background color is black. So let's fix that. Yeah, you can see the text as well. So I just need to change the background color and the text color. Maybe I'll try using something different for styling. I'm going to be restarting the application and see if that works. Nice background color as well. Now let's create a div. And I'm going to be giving it a class name, flex call, flex row, p5. And inside that div, let's create another div. And let's give it a class name, background color. And for the background color, I'll be using a specific one. 1E, 1, B1E. Padding of 2, margin of 2, and rounded borders of 20 pixels, and cursor pointer. Inside the div, let's create a big component. Let's give it a class name of text white. And these are going to be some of the preset questions that people can just click and automatically ask instead of typing in the question. And for the div, let's add an onClick function, and we can set the question state here. Does he know how to center a div? Let's create a couple more questions like this. And let's change the question. Let's say a recruiter is typing in the question, so she'll be asking something like, I'm looking for a full stack engineer. Is he a good fit? Let's copy paste the same question inside the set question method. Since I'll be adding all the undergrad courses that I've done in my school, let's ask something like, has he taken any courses in distributed systems or computer security? Copy paste the same question there. Now let's create a submit button for our question. So I'm going to be using material UI button here. Let's give it a name of submit. And for the button, let's give it a class name. And inside the class name, I'm going to give it a width of 48. Margin bottom of 5. Background, again, I'm going to use a different color this time. Rounded, LG. a type of submit. Let's give it a variant of contained. Let's give it a style, margin 20 pixels, and a background color 81842, a border radius 20 pixels. Sometimes the Tailwind CSS doesn't work with the Material UI, so you don't necessarily need the class name. And inside the form component, we can give it an onSubmit parameter and give it a handle submit function. And now we need to create the handle submit function. So let's go here and let's create a new function called handle submit. It's going to be an asynchronous function. Let's see. Let's create a new state answer. It's going to be useState. It's going to be a string. And let's also create another state for loading. So loading, set loading. And this is going to be a Boolean. And we can set it to false for now. Okay, inside the handle submit, let's set answer to an empty string. Let's set loading to true. Let's do e.prevent default to prevent it from refreshing. And let's see if there is a question in the text field. So I'm going to do question.trim. If it's an empty string, I'm going to set the error. Something like a question is required. And then after that, we can set the error to an empty string and then create another function called getAnswer. So let's create an async function getAnswer. And inside that function, set loading to true. And let's get the question. So let query equals question. And then we can call the API. And I'm going to be using Axios for calling my backend REST API. Right now we can put in a localhost URL. Localhost 5000/answer. And inside the Inside the body, we can pass in the question. So question will be the query. So after we get the response, we can set the answer. We can set loading to false. And then we can set the answer to response.data.answer. So after the div, we can use the ease loading to create like a spinner so that the user knows that it's the answer is still loading. So ease loading and we can add in a circular progress, and that comes from the material UI as well. We can give it a color of inherit. And again, we can use the SX property to style it. We margin auto. Actually, let's give it a color of white. It's actually loading, it's not ease loading. Okay, so I think now we're set. Now if we have an answer, we can also put the answer. So let's make a div for the answer. Let's install something called React Markdown. So because we will be getting a markdown response from the LLM, so we need to make sure it's properly styled and everything. So we'll be using React Markdown. The import React Markdown, and inside the React Markdown, make sure you have React Markdown imported from React Markdown. Okay, let's go down. Inside the React Markdown, we can pass in our answer. So if the answer exists, it's gonna display the answer inside the React Markdown component. Okay, I think we're set now. As you can see, the question is being displayed properly. We have a submit button. Okay, let's open Visual Studio Code. Inside this folder, let's make a new text file called requirements.txt. And here we will be listing all the different libraries that we need for this server. So we will need Flask. We will also need OpenAI. We'll need Flask course for the course for the server. We'll be using Langchain for building the LLM applications. We need gpt-4 for the production server. We also need a few Langchain libraries like Langchain OpenAI. Need Langchain Pinecone. I think that's pretty much it for now. And we can open up a terminal. And do pip install our requirements.txt. So I think I already have a few of these installed. So once you have that installed, let's start writing the server. So for that, create a new file and let's name it server.py. So let's start importing certain libraries. So we can, from Flask, we can import Flask. Let's remove all these autocomplete. We can import course from Flask course. Let's create a Flask app, and this is how you create a new app. Let's use a course app, and then we can start writing our first endpoint, which is slash, just to make sure our server is running. So we can just return a JSON object, and I'll be using JSONify. Oh, we haven't imported JSONify, so make sure you have JSONify imported from Flask. Yeah, just return the status okay, just to make sure our server is running, or something like server is running. Yeah, that's a better message. And before starting the server, make sure you have a main function. Okay, now we have the server running on 5001 port, so we can okay, we got the response back, so now we can start writing our main endpoint. Below the slash endpoint, let's create another route. It's going to be slash answer. Oh, well, let me change the endpoint slash answer. Let's return answer from server, just to make sure we're getting the answer on the front end. We can run this app and test it on the front end right away. Make sure the port is 5001. Let's start the front-end application. npm run start. Let's see if we're getting the response in Postman. Okay, we are getting a response in Postman, so let's try it on our front end. Let's ask something like, what is this education? Okay, it's we're getting an error. Let's try to fix this. Oh, is it? Oh, it's a get function. There you go. So now we have an answer on the front end, but it's not properly styled. Oh, that's because we don't have a styling on the div. So let's add some CSS for our answer. So let's give it a max width of 4XL. Let's give it a margin MX of photo. P6. Let's give it a background gray 900. Let's give it a text color of white. Rounded borders, rounded LG. Let's give it a margin bottom of 5 as well. Let's save this. Let's refresh. Ask a question. Perfect. So now we have a response coming from the server, and it's being displayed on the front end. Now let's go to Pinecone website. So make sure you go to app.pinecone.io. we'll be using Pinecone for our vector database. So let's create an index. Let's give it a name, something like personal assistant. And for the dimensions, click setup by modal and choose text embedding ADA002, and that will give it a dimension of 1536. And let's create the index. So now we have an index for our vector database, and all our data about your career, about your resume, transcript, everything will be stored here. You also need a Pinecone API key, so make sure you click the create API key, give it a name, and you can save this API key in your server. So let's do that. So now we need to load the data into the Pinecone vector database, especially into our index. So let's create a different Python file called loaddata.py. Let's install Langchain community, pip install Langchain community. Let's import OS because we'll be reading and writing some files. And from Langchain Pinecone, let's import Pinecone vector store. And from Langchain OpenAI, let's import OpenAI embeddings. And from Langchain community, we can import, sorry, it's Langchain community document loaders. We can import a PDF loader because we'll be loading a bunch of PDFs like a resume or transcript. And now we can use we can also import from like a text loader from Langchain community document loaders. Let's import a text loader. For splitting, I'll be using the recursive character splitting, so let's import that as well from langchain.textsplitter. Okay, now that we have all the libraries, let's start loading the data. So we need the name of the index. So let me go back to the Pinecone console and copy my index name. So copy this index name. Index name equals personal assistant. Let's also create an embeddings, OpenAI embeddings. Let me copy paste some of the documents that I need to load into the database. So I have two text files, one of them containing my the list of courses that I've done in undergrad, and I also have a different text file with my work and internship experience in detail. And I'm also going to be pasting my transcript so that recruiters can ask for my grades. And I also pasted my resume as well. So let me rename this to resume. So here you can see I have a list of courses that I've done, and here you can see all my internships and projects a little bit more detailed that I would as compared to what you can see on my resume. Okay, let's go back to loaddata.py. Let's create a loader. Loader equals text loader. And inside the text loader, we can give the name of our text file. So course list.txt. After that, create a documents variable, which will be equal to loader.load. And after that, we can create the text splitter. Text splitter equals recursive character text splitter. Let's give it a chunk size of 1000 and a overlap of 50. And after that, let's create a documents docs variable, which will be equal to text splitter dot split documents, and pass in the documents inside. And let's load this to the vector database. And how you do it is call the function pinecone vector store dot from documents, and you pass in the docs, the embeddings, and the index name. Pass in the embeddings after the index name. So embedding will be equal to embeddings, which will be the OpenAI embeddings. Okay, I have one more text file that I need to load. So let's copy paste this below. And change the name of the file to experience detail.txt. Everything else is the same. Now let's load our PDF files, and for that we can use the PyPDF loader. So loader equals PyPDF loader, and pass in the name of the PDF. .pdf. Documents equals loader.load and split. We have one more PDF file, so I'm going to copy paste the code again and change the name of the file to transcript.pdf. Sure, you also need an OpenAI API key for this, so make sure you import the OpenAI API key and the Pinecone API key using os.environ, and then the name of the API key, and then comes the API key. And now you can see that all our data has been loaded into our vector database. So we will need these API keys in our server as well, so you can import it for now, and when we are deploying this, we can just add it to our environment variable using the web app. Import the request library as well. And inside the answer API endpoint, let's get the data using request.json, and then we can get the question from the front end using data.getQuery, and let's print the query just to make sure this works. Let's also import some libraries. So from Langchain, OpenAI, import chat OpenAI. From Langchain.chains, import retrieval QA. From Langchain underscore OpenAI, import OpenAI embeddings. From Langchain underscore Pinecone, import Pinecone vector store. And under the print statement, let's call the chat OpenAI function. So LLM equals chat OpenAI, and inside the chat OpenAI, let's pass in the API key. So it will be equal to our stored environment OpenAI API key, and our model name will be GPT-4o. And let's give it a temperature of 0.5. And after that, we can create a new variable called knowledge, and that will be equal to pinecone vector store dot from existing index, and you pass in the index name. Let's create an index name variable, and that will be equal to personal assistant. And also pass in the OpenAI embeddings, and inside the OpenAI embeddings, let's pass in the OpenAI API key. And after that, we can create a retrieval QA object. So QA equals retrieval QA dot from chain type. Pass in the LLM that we just created, and chain type will be stuff, and the retriever will be knowledge dot as retriever. And we'll be returning QA dot invoke query. And after that, dot get result. Let's start the server, Python 3 server pinecone.py. Oh, I think I messed up the spelling of retrieval QA. It's IE. Okay. Let's go to Postman and see if we get the right answer. This is education. Okay, so we get an error. So let's fix that. Oh yeah, make sure you change the retrieval QA to the right object. And it's not embeddings, it's embedding. So let me change that. There you go. It works. Now let's see if it works on the front end. Okay, it doesn't work. There's some sort of error. So let's try to figure that out. Let me restart the server and see if that fixes the issue. And again, we get the same error. Media type. Oh, I think it should be a post function. So make sure you have post instead of get, because if you're passing the question, so it has to be a post request. It cannot be a get request. So let's see if that fixes the issue. There you go. Perfect. Now that we have a working front end and we have a working back end. So for those who doesn't want to use a vector database, we can also use this using prompt engineering. So we won't be using RAG or Pinecone in this server. So we will pass all the information inside the prompt itself. So for that, we can import certain libraries again. We will have some of the same libraries from the previous server. So let's import Langchain dot schema, import human message, create a new Flask app, put it inside the course. Let's create a /answer endpoint again. But make sure let's create a answer endpoint and make sure it's post, and inside the get answer function we can get the data using request.json and get the question using data.get question. Actually, it's data.get query. And then we can give it an instruction. So I'm gonna say something like, you are a helpful, funny assistant that answers questions about me under 100 words. The context will be inside the context tag. Yeah, the question is asked by someone like a hiring manager. Be funny and polite, or ask a funny questions back. So just and the question will be inside the questions tag. And then inside the context, we'll be passing all our data. So everything about your internships, projects, everything will go inside the context variable. So I've added everything from all my previous files inside the context. So as you can see, I added all my skills, all my links to my websites, GitHub, LinkedIn, so people can ask all the links to the different kind of websites. I've added all my projects, I've added my resume, I've added my course list, I've added my certifications, my school. So yeah, all the details from all the previous files goes inside the context variable. So after the context, let's create an LLM variable, chat OpenAI, and inside the chat OpenAI, passing the OpenAI API key. So that will be overstored environ API key. Passing the model name, which will be GPT-4o, and the temperature 0.5. Let's create a message variable. So that will be f inside the apostrophe goes the instruction, and pass in the instruction variable, and then after that goes the context. So context will be context. Add in the context tag because we said that the context will be inside the context tag inside the instruction. And then after the context tag will be the question. Now also make sure the question is inside the question tag. After this, we can call the API. So response equals LLM, and then you pass in the human message, and the content will be message. And, return the response as JSONify answer response.content. And let's create a main function and then do app.run debug equals true, and port will be 5001. So you can use either of these servers, depends on whether you want to use RAG or not. Just copy paste the OpenAI API key. Since we won't be using Pinecone, you don't need the Pinecone API key here. So let's start the server, Python 3 server context.py. The server is running, so now we can test it. Okay, remove the body. We don't need the body for the server status. Okay, now the server is running. Now let's call the answer. Let's ask what is his GitHub. Oh, it should be post function. Make sure it's post function. There you go. It was funny, and it also gave me the link to my GitHub. Perfect. So now we have a working server that doesn't use RAG. So we don't need to make any changes. We can just ask what is his GitHub and LinkedIn. Perfect. It gave me the link to the GitHub and also the link to the LinkedIn. So something like, is he a good fit? There. Perfect. So we have a working chatbot that answers questions based on your experience, projects, or anything that you've added on your resume. It gives you links to your GitHub, your LinkedIn. Awesome. See how it's funny as well. Let's ask something like, what is his experience with Kafka? Perfect. It gave me a really specific answer of what I did, what my experience with Kafka is, where I used Kafka. So that's how you make a RAG-based chatbot, and also a server without RAG. Perfect. And that's how make sure you load the data first and then call the server. You only need to load the data once. So inside the render.com, login and choose your repository. So I'm going to be choosing my repository. Once you choose the repository, you can click the connect button, and after that, go to the project and add the environment variables. So you can add your OpenAI key and Pinecone API key here. So after that, you can click the deploy button, and it's gonna show you the status of the deploy. So after the deployment is live, you can change the URL of your server to the URL of your server, to the server that you just deployed. Yeah, after that, you can click the submit button and see if it works. There you go, it works. And so that's how you deploy the backend server. Perfect. So if you guys found this valuable, make sure you subscribe and please give a like. It will help the channel grow. And